are directed towards the Atwater-Buhack Road and the Highway 99 project that's still under construction. First, let me say that I really like the off-bound ramp, the 99 off-bound ramp, northbound. It's real nice. You come up to a nice smooth stop without even any hard braking at all. But one of the selling points given to the public before the start of construction was to make the interchange safer. I feel the design so far has failed in that respect, partially. Why? Because the northbound on-ramp configuration makes it accessible only for one of three possible directions. Currently, it is not accessible from what would be the southbound off-ramp, nor is it accessible from the northbound off-ramp. The only access, as configured, is from the direction of the Green Sands Avenue. Someone is going to attempt access from southbound or northbound traffic, and they will go off of the edge. It's going to happen. Because a fix will be prohibitively expensive, this is where I think your designers have failed. Another aspect of the project I believe is a failure is the intersection of Gurr Road and Ashby Road. I cannot comprehend the reasoning behind putting a roundabout there. I don't know if you guys have been there. The majority of traffic there is from westbound Ashby to northbound Gurr, and from southbound Gurr to eastbound Ashby. The one block of residential units on Ashby, west of Gurr, I feel could have been served with a simple stop sign. Traveling that intersection one way is a nice, smooth right-hand turn. However, going the other way, you must drive in a question mark pattern. It's very difficult for a vehicle of length or even pulling a trailer. In fact, the intersection has failed within 3 weeks of opening because a vehicle has already run over one of the three directional signs. The down sign, I feel Representative Road has it. It has just recently been fixed. The configuration to me just doesn't make sense. Now, I don't know what the future plans are for the area, other than that retail center on that blank land, or whether Atwater will annex the area or remain under Merced County. But please do not dump this albatross of an intersection into the laps of either community's maintenance department. It's going to be a maintenance and liability nightmare. This is fixable. I come to you, before you, because ultimately this panel wrote the check for the project. I realize it probably will not get altered, but I ask you, at least drive out there and take a look and see what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizens that would wish to address this? No, if not, we'll go on to item number 4. Oral report, Citizens Advisory Committee.
Good afternoon. I'm Pamela Taconis from the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'm a resident of Merced. What we have done this meeting this month is Carrie McNichol of the Commute Connection gave an update on their program and some year-end reporting information, statistics that she was able to provide. Matt Fell introduced Rebecca True, our Civics member who will be working with MCAG and the jurisdictions. The committee recommended approval of the MCAG Governing Board's action items presented. Those items, of course, were the minutes of the November 6th CAC meeting, a draft formal amendment number 11 to the 2015 Federal Transportation Information Improvement Program. Information items include the 2016 One Voice Program update, overall work program, 2016-2017 process, the Transportation Expenditure Plan update, Commute Connection Annual Report, and the announcements that were made. Matt Fell invited the committee to the MCAG's open house, December 17th from 5 to 8, and Matt Fell distributed the FAST Act summary to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from or questions from the board? No? Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Now we'll go on to item number 5, Civic Spark Introduction. Matt Fell.
This is just to let you know that we do have somebody on board. She's a fellow with Civic Spark, and you can meet her either tonight at the open house or at a future board meeting. She'll be helping out the jurisdictions, each of you, with various climate change planning and initiatives that can help with that. So example includes a state sustainable energy roadmap and Some of the jurisdictions are interested in electrical vehicle chargers and some other things like that. So we have her mainly to help you with things that you might need or things that you might be interested in. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, or you would like to see what we can provide for you, just let me know and we'll try and help you out.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Move on to item number 6, presentation, Commute Connection Annual Report. Carrie McNichol.
Good afternoon, directors, and thank you for having me here today. For those of you, I see a few fresh faces on the board, I think from when I was here last year. Well, you're all fresh faces, but a few ones that are new to me. My name is Carrie McNichol, and I am with the Commute Connection program. As just a little bit of background for those of you who may not be familiar, Commute Connection is the transportation demand management program that serves Merced County as well as Stanislaus and San Joaquin counties. Our goal is to improve air quality, to reduce traffic congestion, and to improve the overall quality of roadway operations through alternative transportation, whether that be carpooling, biking, walking, transit, van pools, trains, planes, automobiles, a little bit of everything. So that's what we exist to do. We work largely with the employers in the area, as well as directly with the commuters. And we'll get to that in a moment. Preview of coming attractions. He got excited. It's very exciting. So I am here today to just briefly share with you a short annual report from last fiscal year, so 14-15. You have in front of you the brightly green colored map. On the front side has some of our results from Merced County this year, just a few of the highlights that we wanted to share, as well as the back side has some from San Joaquin and Stanislaus as well. The reason we include all three, of course, it's a 3-county program, and somehow commutes don't respect county boundaries. I don't know what that's about, but so that's there for your perusal, and I'm happy to take any questions on it. In addition, we have a little bit of a highlights reel video featuring pretty much all real people, real quotes, real stories. So I'll share that with you now, and then have a few other highlights to share afterwards. Yeah, now it's time.
We want to know?
Will loves his job, but he hates his commute.
Okay.
I thought maybe it was music you didn't like.
Yeah, it'll wear on you after a while. Sorry about that. Just make sure it didn't start again. So that's the highlights reel from some of our success stories from across the 3 counties. We wanted to highlight a little bit of kind of the van pool program, some of the bike efforts, the carpool efforts. Sandra and Holly are real people. They work at Golden Valley Health Center in Merced, and they shared their story with us, and it's always great when you hear that it's actually working. I'm sure that's relieving to you as well as to us. So in addition, I know that you were treated to a preview of our new TDM system last month. So we are moving forward on implementing that, and so far it's going fantastically well. We're seeing huge increases in the numbers already this year, adding an average of about 200 a month right now in new commuters, with many of those coming from Merced. In addition, at the end of last fiscal year, we made a change to improve our van pool subsidy. So any new van pool now is eligible for $200 a month off their van lease costs for the first entire year. And then the biggest change is that we now have a subsidy in perpetuity. So they'll receive $100 a month off the cost of their vans for every month after that for the life of the van. So we're hoping that'll really help with the retention of some of these vans, as well as attracting interest from new vans. And in fact, we've already seen, I think we've got about 30 new vans since the beginning of this fiscal year, with a good handful of those coming from Merced, many of them traveling down into Chowchilla and Fresno. The next big effort is a strategic marketing plan that we want to keep this momentum going. And really our goal is to best serve as an asset to your business community, to your commuters, and to your city staff. We want to be an extension of what they're able to do. And so we're taking a look at what some of our tools are, how we can best maybe rework them to make them more effective, and just to continue to spread the word. You know, we've tapped a couple of you for assistance in the research phase. We're in the research phase now, and then forthcoming will be a strategic plan, as well as the development of those new tools, including a new website. With that, I'll keep it short and sweet, but I'm happy to take any questions you have on the report, the video, or anything else.
Any questions from the board? Go ahead, sir.
One quick question, is the update going to be available, are you going to be able to post that on our MCAG webpage, or?
This one?
The video?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We'll get it provided to them.
Because the audience is going to be really for folks who have an understanding, because I
Right.
got on very quickly, we're using the acronym VMD.
Yeah.
So it really needs, it's not the general public, so I just thought that might be a useful information.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to speak the acronym speak once you get used to it.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you, Carrie. Good
Thank you.
information. Thank you. Item number 7, audit presentation, Price Paging Company, Fausto Hinojosa.
Good afternoon, Chair Espinosa, directors. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you today to share the results of our audits for the 3 entities, Merced County Association of Governments, Transit Joint Powers Authority, and also Merced County Regional Waste. I think in the interest of time, what I'd like to do is make one presentation that kind of covers all 3. If there are any questions with respect to any of the 3, then obviously feel free to ask me any of those, either as I'm going through this or at the end of my comments. But what I'd like to do is not spend the time on the numbers, but really just talk about our audit process and our audit opinions. So we've issued unmodified audit reports. Those are clean audit opinions, and that's the best type of audit opinion that you can receive on the financial statements. As you know, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board sets the accounting rules and the financial statement presentation rules. Our job as auditors then is to determine whether your financial statements present fairly the results of operations and your financial position in accordance with those rules. And so when you receive an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, it basically means that your financial statements do in fact meet those rules. So a couple of things though that are in the audit opinion that I'd like to point out. As auditors, we have responsibilities, but management also has responsibilities. And one of the key responsibilities for management is to ensure that there is an effective internal control system in place. So management is responsible not only for the design of that internal control system, but also for the maintenance and operation of it. Our job as auditors is to obtain an understanding of your internal controls and to ensure that it is operating effectively. An internal control system basically is in place in order to catch any significant errors, any material errors, or any fraud. That is the purpose of that internal control system. And so again, our job as auditors then is to obtain an understanding of how that system is designed, and then to determine whether those controls have been placed in operation. Once we do that, once we obtain an understanding, then we create specific audit tests to address the risks that we see in the organization. So in any financial system, there are always risks, and our audit is designed to catch any significant errors or fraud, as I've pointed out. So that's how we design our audit procedures, and we focus our time on those areas of greatest risk. So I'm pleased to report, though, that we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. And again, that we've issued an unmodified opinion with respect to the financial statements. So generally accepted accounting principles will change from time to time. The significant change in this year that we audited, there was a new statement issued, GASB statement number 68, which has to do with pensions. And so in the solid waste financial statements, you'll see a new liability, a pension liability, that you will see. I know that you all represent various governments, so in the municipalities and in other governments that you represent, you will see that there is a new pension liability that is now reported in the financial statements. Apart from that liability, there really isn't anything significantly different in these financial statements from the prior year. So again, I don't plan to go through the numbers because these are the numbers as of June 30, 2015, and here we are in December, but I'm glad to answer any questions that anybody might have, either with respect to the financial statements or our audit process.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? On any other audits? No?
You answered my one question.
I'm going to go ahead and open up to the public in case they have any questions on the audit statements. Any questions from the public? No? All right, thank you very much. If there's any other questions as we go along on the consent agenda, people still have a chance to ask questions on anything. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the MCAG Governing Board. Item number 8, Caltrans report. Ken Baxter.
Tom Dumas?
Definitely not Ken. We'll make it a lot shorter. Kind of like Christmas, I'm bringing gifts, but they're good gifts. So I'll start off with the news first. I've got some flyers for the Plainsburg ribbon cutting.
Make sure you're using the mic.
Sorry. Got some flyers for the Plainsburg ribbon cutting. Save the date. It's going to be held on Friday, January 15th at 11:30. I'll leave those over there. And the other thing, I would need to borrow Director Pedroza and Ms. Curran for a second. We have a presentation for the Arboleda project. It won our 2015 Excellent in the and the department came up with a couple. And this was for Director Pedroza and a little certificate. It was an awesome partnership, and they wanted to recognize all of your assistance and hard work and patience. And another certificate. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you. All good news. I don't really have any bad news unless someone has questions that I really don't have an answer for.
Questions from the board for Caltrans? Oh, I do have one. We still have an issue in Livingston on the bottleneck right on the southbound on-ramp, and that bottleneck right there. So if you can address it, please, to Ken Baxter. And
Yes, I've talked about it with our operations people, too. That is a local section that we would have to have a local agency start. It's not directly attributable to our traffic on the highway. It's coming from the development and the attraction of that truck stop and all the other things in there. The slope on that is really going to be our major problem. That's kind of why It's still the way it is. It's so high, you've also got, as I recall, there's utility or gas line up under that.
Okay.
The road as it exists doesn't really provide enough space to widen it out and move the sidewalk over to straighten it out for you, so you've got a straight line there. But our operations people and have said they'd be willing to work with somebody if they wanted to come up with a project. It's going to take quite a bit of fill, and it's not
Okay.
going to be a cheap solution.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we'll just get our council to, and have our engineering staff to contact you guys then.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
I was just trying to get Brooks's attention. We have a lot of dirt that we can provide for a project like that at the
All
landfill.
the dirt we need. All right.
Thank you.
That's a major component, you never know.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have enough dirt too, because we, at one point sold dirt from the wastewater treatment plant
Yeah,
for
there you go.
the Sultana overpass, so we still have a lot
Yeah.
of dirt as well too, so.
Ours is
All right. Thank you. We have number 9, consent agenda. Item number A, minutes of the governing, of the November 19, 2015 MCAG Governing Board meeting. B, draft formal amendment number 11 to the 2015 Federal Transportation Improvement Program. C, Merced County Association of Governments audit financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2015. D, a reappointment of Citizens Advisory Committee representatives. So any motions or questions by the board or motions?
Move to approve. Second.
First and second.
Quick question on B.
Go ahead, sir.
Where's the list of projects? Where's that, really, I just need to know, where is it? I couldn't locate it. It is with the amendment. Is that on our webpage? And I need to go-
I don't know if it's on our webpage or not. It's probably not. Apologize for not including that in the agenda. The two projects, one is Atwater Schaefer Road in Juniper, and the other one is Merced Falls Road, centerline rumble strips, widened shoulder.
No, I was just wondering where I could find the list. That's
Yeah, okay, I can send it to you.
So we have a motion by John Pedrosa and a second by Josh Pedrosa. Okay. All the ayes? Vote? Nays? Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 10, information discussion only. A, minutes of the December 19, 2015 Technical Review Board meeting.
Just information only.
Okay, item B, 2016 One Voice Program update. You may read all of them.
If you like, if there's any questions or comments on any of these items, we'd be happy to address them.
Okay. Or C, overall work program 2016, 2017 process. D, MCAG fiscal year 2015-16 first quarter report, July 2015, September 2015. E, Federal Transportation Reauthorization Bill, the FAST Act. It's just discussion by the board on these items? No? Okay. All right, so,
Yeah, there's no action.
no action. So, okay. Item number 11, Transportation Expenditure Plan Update. Margie?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, I wanted to give you an update on our Transportation Expenditure Plan Steering Committee that has met this past Monday. At the meeting, there was a presentation made by our consultants, Godby Research. They gave a presentation on the poll results, which I've sent you the link that's available on our agenda. I also provided you with basically the slides that I think are the most important. It basically shows the results of the poll, and it shows that we have a 71.4 or 0.5%. I guess with rounding, it's 0.5, but if you add it up, it says it's 0.4. 71.4% approval rate, with the definitely yeses and the probably yeses, based on the question that was asked included in the box, the yellow box to the right of that in the slide. And then I also provided you a slide that shows the breakdown of that 71% by jurisdiction, so you can see the support in your communities. So the committee is working on developing the expenditure plan. They did take action at their last meeting to recommend to you to go for a 30-year expenditure plan versus a 20-year, because the poll results were pretty favorable to move forward with that. We are working on the breakdown of the expenditure plan, how the money would be spent between regional and local and transit and bike and ped, and that is still being discussed. So we will continue to do that. I hope to have a draft expenditure plan to this board at your February meeting, if all goes well. And that plan will be asking you to forward that to the local jurisdictions for their individual actions. So each city and the county board of supervisor has to approve the expenditure plan prior to it coming back to this board for action. And then if you decide to act on it, you would be requesting the board of supervisors to place it on the November 2016 ballot. But as far as the poll results go and our consultants, they highly recommend that we do move forward with this process. We have a good chance of having it pass. And if we do our homework and get the word out, that we may be able to benefit from this additional revenue for transportation in our county. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you. Any questions by the board? No questions? No? Okay, let me open it up to the public. If there's any questions by the public on this item? No? Okay. We'll close it, and so is there no action required, right?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 12, Regional Transportation Impact Fee Study Update, MAFL.
Thank you, directors. In June, we entered into contract with TJKM Transportation Consultants, and we have Chris Kinzel here with TJKM, and he's going to give you an update, a report of his findings so far. I would like to recommend that we have a board study session on the RTIF before the next governing board meeting on January 21st, if that works, so that we can discuss these issues more in depth. And so now I'll turn it over to Chris, and he'll report his findings, his recommendations, and the next steps for the study update.
Good afternoon, directors. I'm Chris Kinzel with TJKM Transportation Consultants. We were, as Matt said, we were retained to provide recommendations to update the regional traffic impact fee for MCAG. We've been pleased to be involved with this project. Our first step, well, we've met a couple of times with the Technical Review Board just to get background and input, and to use them as the sounding board, at least to date, on the project. As you may know, the regional traffic impact fee has been in place for some time. About $11 million has been collected. About $500,000 per year is what's coming in. New development is charged about $3,000, $3,100 per dwelling unit. And for non-residential development, the rates vary, but for example, for retail uses, it's about $4 a square foot. So in our review of the program, we first took a look at the existing projects. There are 13 projects in the fee program now, spread throughout the county. And we've reviewed that. I won't go into the details of which ones those are. I suspect you're probably familiar with that, although I can answer any questions. As we completed our review and we talked to representatives of each of the city, we suggested there are some issues that we found. The first issue was the RTIF has been a bit disappointing in that it hasn't collected as much money, particularly recently, as was expected because of the slumping economy. We found that, in fact, because it's optional, not all cities are collecting the regional TIF funds. Some cities have their own fee, and which is separate, and they may collect their own, but not their regional fee for various reasons. And because the projects are so great in terms of magnitude and costs, and the income is not as good as it might be, there's some cities probably have the feeling they're never going to get a payoff from the RTIF. Their project, especially outside of the Merced Atwater area where a lot of the funds are directed, may never happen. And the other thing we noticed is that one of the main projects, we call it a signature project, although there are more than one of those, the Los Matas bypass, seems to be stalled. It's an expensive project, and unlike at the beginning of the process, when it was first put in the project, it doesn't seem to have any standing with Caltrans any longer. No funds are forthcoming. And there doesn't appear to be, from our view, a strong mandate even within the community for the funds. And there's also a question as whether those funds create a benefit for the developers who would be asking to pay for it. All the developers would just be paying for a reasonably small portion of it. And of course, Los Matas has not been collecting RTIF funds as well. So our recommendations for moving forward, as we consider updating the list, is first of all that we think there's with 13 projects is probably enough, perhaps too many. We've even recommended that some projects be removed. It's just too diluted. The funds don't stretch far enough to make everything financially feasible. When we ran this by the TRB, they conceptually agreed with that. We have enough projects. Let's just stick with the ones that are there, or maybe make some adjustments to those. And then we said some low priority projects should be removed, and perhaps shifted to an alternative project, something that maybe has more importance to the local community. So the project list is just too expensive to be efficient and effective, is really what we're suggesting, and the TRB sort of conceptually agreed with that as well. We suggested that maybe the MCAG should consider taking a portion of their funds and returning them to the source. Perhaps as you collect your funds, and maybe 20 or 25%, this is the concept, should go back to the agency that collected it, and apply that either to the main project in their area or to a project of their choice, a local project of their choice. But that project should have some regional benefit, maybe not countywide, but something, other than a speed bump on a residential street, something like that. An alternative to that would be to split the county into east and west, using the San Joaquin River as a dividing point, and have, in effect, separate fees for each area, so that, again, the funds would more likely be returned to the source. The fees may be different amounts depending upon the projects and that sort of thing. But that's another concept. And again, the city managers group felt like that's worth exploring further. One or both of those, or one or the other. I guess both of them wouldn't necessarily go together. And we also suggested that the rules of the game ought to change a bit. I was surprised to see, I haven't encountered this elsewhere, and I've done a lot of these studies, that the local agencies have the choice to opt in or opt out of paying the funds. And so from our standpoint as the consultant from out of town, we think everybody ought to participate in it, and the rules ought to be changed to require that. And again, conceptual approval of that from the city managers. We recommended that the Los Banos bypass probably ought to be replaced with another project, a lower cost project that has more local and regional support. So that's another recommendation. The next steps, we think, are first to finalize a new project list. We need to calculate the cost. That's part of our task for that, to determine what the total cost of the fee might be. And we're recommending 10 projects moving forward. And I'll just list those by name. They're all ones that are probably familiar with you. The Atwater Merced Expressway, these are not in any priority extension, and that would be from Green Sands to Santa Fe would be the next one. Campus Parkway, moving north from Childs Avenue toward the university. State Route 59. Well, this is a project that the TRB agrees probably ought to be removed and replaced with a project that's already on the list, but as a substitute, and that's Mission between 59 and 99, State Route 59 and 99. Another project to be retained would be State Route 165 in Hillmore. We need to work out the details of what these projects would actually consist of. The Winton Avenue interchange on 99, the roundabout in Gustine, a Los Banos project as an alternative to the bypass, a Dos Palos project that needs to be determined. It's just, right now, there's just a pot of money in there, and that needs to be tightened up a bit. Bellevue Road, the missing link in Bellevue between Grove and the Atwater city limits to the west of this location. And then State Route 59 from Mission down to 152. That's a project that's been considered for passing lanes. So the projects that are not included that were on the previous list are the Bradley Overhead, which is completed. The portion of 140, State Route 140, east of the Bradley Overhead seems to be a pretty low project. And those projects, I think conceptually those projects have been suggested as worthy of further discussion by the city managers group. So questions to address, I think. First of all, are we in agreement with the project list that I just described? These will be, as Matt said, let's talk about this in greater detail, perhaps at a study session next month. So that was the first one. Is that list okay? The next question is the return to source concept, where either money comes directly back to the city that collected it for use on their own project, or perhaps an east-west two-zone split within the county. And then the final question is, should all the member agencies be required to collect the RTIF, whereas now it's optional? And those projects, or those concepts and questions had general consensus from the city managers group. That's my report. I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Or comments.
I see that you use the MCAG traffic forecasting model.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that model. Is that available to us? Is that on the website?
It's a very technical model. I don't think you would have to have specialized software to use it. So it's not a model that somebody can just walk off the street and use. But it is at our office, and
Okay.
or we do work with the San Joaquin County. Also, we have a 3-county model. I'm
Okay,
looking at Matt. So,
did you use the University of Pacific commuter study in comparison with the traffic?
We haven't used the model yet, but that comes at a later stage. We're basically using the model to evaluate the degree of deficiency of the recommended projects, and we'll also use it. It's got a very good land use set of files, which says how much is existing population and employment in each traffic zone, and how is that going to change over time.
Okay. Just because I know there's 20,000 people commuting out of our county every morning, and I think that's a big influence on which way, and 17,500 are going north, and only 2,700 are going south. So I think that's something that we need to pay attention to, where I think the Bellevue, I was looking at the Bellevue, and we put on there that it's a $5 million cost with a 2.5 from RTIF, but from what I understand, that we don't have to purchase that right away because we're in discussions with the county of a trade. So I just want to keep that in mind because that could be a lot less expensive of a project than what we have on there. And I think that's imperative for the city of Atwater to open that up for commerce and a new entry into the city. Let me see.
I drove to this meeting on that road just to try out the alternatives. And
Yeah, it's not
I
good.
agree with you.
Try it when school's getting out or they're in session because you have to go through.
Right.
It's a tough one. I commuted there north for many years. When they opened that up, it was fantastic. So thanks. You've answered a lot of my questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Director Walsh.
You'll be sending the questions out in advance to us so that we can kind of, again, go over it.
the questions are included in the staff report, the report that's attached to the Matt staff report. So this whole, basically, his whole recommendations in there.
I just skipped
Yeah.
through the report,
Yeah.
so since I knew that we were going
Yeah.
to have a study session.
They're at the end.
Any other questions over here on the side? Over here? No questions on this? No? Go ahead.
I would like to be a part of the study session.
Yes. So you are all invited to the study session. We will be having it prior to your next board meeting, which is in Livingston. So we'll be asking for a meeting space, hopefully in the council chambers, if we can get that meeting room earlier.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that's where we'll be, and then we'll have our regular meeting immediately following. But 1 o'clock, or 1 or 1:30? Or
What day?
on the,
21st?
Of January.
yes.
Correct. Right before the meeting, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13, San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority City Representative Selection Process. Stacy Dabbs?
Thank you. We have been asked to help share some information and do some outreach regarding the newly formed San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority, and specifically with outreach to the cities who may be interested in participating as a representative for the 2 city seats on the Joint Powers Authority Board. And the JPA includes 5 counties. It's the Central San Joaquin, Merced being one of them, Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare, the other 4. And the purpose is to serve as the admin for the region to basically apply for the competitive grants that will be made available through the water bond that was passed last year, and potentially to compete for other state and federal grants that could also fund similar projects in the region with regard to local surface storage projects, groundwater recharge projects, and most specifically, the construction of the Temperance Flat Dam. So the board of directors for this JPA will ultimately be 11 members, and that would be a supervisor from each of the 5 counties, and I believe that Director O'Banion is the member for Merced County, and Director Pedroso is the alternate. And And then there would be 2 city representatives, and that's where we've been asked to assist on getting that information out. And I'll go back to that. Additionally, 2 water representatives from water agencies, a tribal council representative, and then a member at large. So we've been asked specifically to help with the city representation. And there will be 2 city seats on the JPA, and the criteria would be that one would come from a west side city, one would come from an east side city. They cannot come from the same county, and one of the 2 would need to be what is considered a disadvantaged community. So of those 2 seats, well, I should say it'd be a 2-year term. This is for all the seats. It's a 2-year term, and each of the jurisdictions or the members of the agency, whatever, however that falls, that is on the board is responsible for bringing a $50,000 contribution to the table. That is to generate an operating fund of $500,000 to get the JPA started, staff, whatnot. How those funds are collected is completely at the discretion of the agency and its partners in the region. So if there was a city, let's say in Merced County that was interested, they would need to be able to bring the $50,000 to the table, but it wouldn't necessarily have to come from that particular city if there was an agreement among other cities, or there can be it could be a private collection. There's no rule of how that money comes up. It's just that every member of that 11-member board is expected to bring a $50,000 contribution, and all that, and if Supervisor O'Banion or Pedroso have more information, as I understand it, there's an anticipation for future contributions. It's just unknown of what that would be. But, there's ongoing costs to the JPA and the activities that will happen. So in terms of the city representatives, like I said, I mentioned there'll be 2 seats on the board. That's for all 5 counties. And they are looking to get those filled quickly, so prior to the first JPA meeting, which is anticipated for the beginning of 2016. So the next steps that are outlined is we've been asked to do outreach here in Merced County in the cities to see if there's anyone that is interested in nominating themselves for this city selection process, and to identify yourself if you would be considered. And there, I think in terms of east side, west side, that's determined within your own county. So it's not necessarily are you a valley, east side, or west side city. It's kind of a self-identified. So our west side cities in Merced County would be considered west side for this whole process. So east side, an east side alternate, west side, a west side alternate. Those are the categories to self-identify. And then if anyone is interested, we just ask that you let us know. The COGs are working together to kind of get an idea of who may be interested, and then there will be a meeting held. I think it was tentatively identified for February 1st, where all cities that would be interested under these conditions and would like to nominate themselves would come to this meeting. And in fact, any city that wants to just be part of this, even if you don't want to nominate yourself, this will be the meeting where the cities at the table will select the primary and the alternate for each of those east side and west side communities. So we're asking for you all to do outreach, identify within your own communities if you have a city that is interested in nominating themselves for this process. Maybe you are interested in just being a part of it, but not necessarily nominating yourself to the board. So just let us know. If you could let us know of any interest that you have on any level by the 20th of January, we'll make sure that you have, you'll be kept in the loop with any information that comes forward, particularly with the meeting on the 1st of February. And that is
Okay.
all.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to ask, where did the request come from? Who sent the request to get this information?
It was sent to me by Tony Bourne, the Executive Director of Fresno COG. They did a process in
Okay.
the city of, in the county of Fresno, and so when they already have their nominations for both east side and west side, so when that happened, they said, well, this isn't fair, so they then reached out to the other 4 counties.
Very good. I am the representative from Merced County at this point on the JPA. Mr. Vice Chair, or excuse me, Mr. Chairman coming up with the board. Hopefully.
I was attempting to explain that it's
Okay,
cities.
keep going.
2 cities for the 5-county area.
Okay, that is correct.
Not
And,
2 cities within the county of Merced.
okay, and basically, I don't think it's a discussion for the Board of Supervisor members of MCAG. I would have looked look to the city select committee to discuss this issue and come up with some recommendations. I don't have any problem with the issue and expressing, or having people express an interest in it, because we're not going to have a choice on who they're going to be anyhow.
Yeah.
It originally has been all driven by some folks to the south of us. But they are making sure and attempting to make it fair and equitable to every single county. And that was a lot of the difficulty that was occurring when this first came out. This has been going on and being worked on since summer? September. And so they're wanting representation, and they basically broke it down into where they want a west side, east side, 2 cities from throughout the entire area. I don't know how they're going to go about trying to collect $50,000 from the city representative unless this, well, fine, that's great. And maybe they will, I don't know. And there's also a slot for tribes and discussions on tribal. And they've got at least one that have stepped up and want to be part of this. So they're looking to see if they have any others. Mainly the function of this organization is going to be to advocate federally and stately in regards to water storage and possibly other issues affecting water in the Central Valley. And I think I think the planning behind it is very admirable, and I think that we can probably do more as 5 counties than we could as individual counties, because we've been doing the individual county things for quite a few years, and you see how far we've gotten. And the primary project they're working on is going to be Temperance Flat, and additional storage for Bryant Dam and irrigation water for the Central Valley.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you. I was going to request that, I'd like to be nominated and we can talk to the rest of the cities, because I feel it's important for at least one of the cities in Merced County to have the more votes that we have on the JPA will be beneficial. I've been on the Merced Irrigation District Advisory Committee for the last 2 years, and I've been attending the well conferences that they have for Latino leaders in the past 3 years. But I think it's whether I'm trying to get as much knowledge as I can on the water issues. Being a farmer, I think that not just because I'm a farmer, I think water is affecting all of us in the cities, and as well as farming wise. I think that if there's another member that's more educated on water in our cities that wants to be on it, I would be supportive. But if not, then I'd be I like to be on the board. I know that we would have to try to work out the $50,000 with the rest of the cities. But if there's somebody else, in my behalf, I would support, another member for another city for, so we can pay equitable. Because the more representatives, I feel that we'll have at least 2 from Merced County there, representing in our area. So, go ahead, sir.
Is this on, or is? Oh, they're all on. This is just kind of the skeptical person. Is the $50,000 a one-time payment, or can they come back for more later? That's in the JPA, it's one time?
That's a good question.
They could come back and ask for more dollars each time the entity that's in has the option to say, yeah, I'm frankly, those of us who play cards, I'm in and I'll call your bet, or I'm not in and I'm out. And so, yes, it could be additional money in the future.
So it's like our 49er seats. So what happens is you pay the initial fee, and then if you don't pay the yearly fee, you're out. Okay. Thank you. You've answered my question.
And it was explained, similar cities at an earlier meeting had that concern, and it was explained that it would be a later decision of the JPA board. So whoever fills those seats would be making any decisions moving forward on additional contributions.
Correct.
And the other question, I guess, would be if one board member doesn't get elected, I guess another representative from the same region will be on the board.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, and I want to mention too, this is probably not going to affect the city of Livingston because the Bryant project, this is mostly CCID, and so it's mostly Dos Palos and Los Banos areas.
Okay.
So I think that you guys have the biggest stake in this, or biggest interest in this.
Yeah, I'll be supportive, so it's up to you guys.
So it's all CCID.
We'll talk about it Monday.
Okay, so,
This discussion item.
that's just a discussion, so, any questions from the public, just in case, no? Okay. We'll move on to
Mr. Chairman,
Merced.
before you go.
Go ahead, sir.
I would suggest that do exactly what was requested. If you, as a city, have a representative that's interested in being considered, get your name to Stacy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority, number 14, action item, consent agenda. A, minutes of the November 19, 2015, Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority. B, Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority audited financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2015. Questions or more comments from the board?
Second.
First and second, who? John Pedrosa first?
Jerry was
Jerry
first, John
and
was second.
John was second, okay. Motion, is there any questions from the public? Further comments on the audit? No? Okay. We'll call for the questions. Only ayes? Nays? No? Okay, move on. Number 15, oral report, monthly update. Brooks Steyer?
Good afternoon. I always like to start with the tonnage, and you see we're down from 24.8 to 23.2, but when I re-looked at the numbers, what was really happening is we just had an exceptionally good November of 14. So we're really not having that much of a drop in tonnage right now. We're pretty much holding our own, but what's happened is Billy Wright has picked up a lot of the slack from the loss of City of Turlock. So Billy Wright Landfill's really doing well right now. Have several new customers over there. I know some directors will be really happy with that. Yeah, it's good. It's very good. And we just signed I was going to hold this till next month, but I'll tell you now, we just signed an agreement today with a company that's been coming in regularly. They wanted to bring in more tonnage, and so we negotiated an agreement probably for at least the next 9 months, and they're going to bring in 20,000 tons. And so that essentially would make up for the loss for the City of Turlock that we had. So it's not as long a term a contract. Turlock was going to be 10 years, but we'll go to year with them, and it could be really good. So, the Valley Fill, we had the EIR out November 2nd, or got the responses back November 2nd. We have the comments we just got those back this week. We're reviewing those, so those will go back to the entities that asked us questions. And so we should have a public hearing in February, March, but again, no significant red flags that I see right now. So again, the project looks good at this point. We're working on RFQ for the environmental engineering work. In other words, we're going to have, in 2016, we need to plan to do expansions at both landfills and to move the infrastructure. So there's a lot of engineering work coming up, some heavy lifting. So we'll be preparing for that. And Los Banos has, I think I've mentioned this before, they have an old burn dump that was outside the city some years ago, and now the city's just kind of expanded around it, and they need to clean that up, and they want to bring that material to Billy Wright. And so it's not going to happen until 2017, but they need to know the budget numbers, and we're going to get a year's worth of tonnage in a few months, and so we need to know how much money we're going to get to plan for that expansion. And so we've approached them about negotiating a contract early, and so they agreed. So we've already written a draft. Emily's reviewing it now. So in the next few months, you should be seeing an agreement, and it's a good deal for them, I believe, and it's a good deal for us. It's going to be a 7-figure payday for us, and it's going to be a discount for them. So I think it's going to be very positive on both ends. And then we have the new recycling contract. We're just 2 months into that. And so I just wanted to share with you what the last 2 months looked like. So in July and August, after hauling and disposal costs were deducted from the sale of the material, we profited $2,300. And in the first 2 months, with September, October, with the new contract, we got $15,000. And then the disposal, which we used to pay them for disposal, now we get paid for disposal. So we got almost $5,500. So the turnaround was from $2,300 to almost $21,000. So This may not hold up every month, it's conditional on what people put in their blue bins and the quality of that and what we sell it for, but so far the contract's looking like a really good deal for us. And that's all my updates unless there are questions.
Any questions from the board? No? Just information, so. We'll move on to item number 16, alternatives to manage increased tire volumes at landfills. Brooks Tire again?
Yeah, and I apologize for this being off-centered. We had to convert it to a different file format. But we brought this up several months ago because we had problems getting rid of tires, and everybody in the county had problems getting rid of tires. So they were coming to the landfill, and we were trying to accept them to prevent illegal dumping, and customers just don't have anywhere to take them. And so we're allowed to have 500 tires at the landfill at any one time. That's less than 3 tons. And so in 14, we got over 300,000 tires, and this year we had gotten over 100,000 tires. So the tires were way out of permit compliance. The state has kind of been lenient because they know the problems in the area are not created by us, but we need to be in compliance. So we talked about some options, and our preference was to buy a shredder. But there were some questions about what's happening with tire recycling in California as a whole, and could we get in the recycling business? So we did a lot of research, and I've just kind of summed it up, but I wanted you to know I got these reports directly from Cal Recycle, so I'm just giving you a brief summary here. But the state basically funds, I'm sorry again for the overlap, $44.5 million a year is what goes into tire recycling statewide. That's your $3.75 you pay per tire. This is where the money goes. And so you can see for 15, 16, up to the next 5 years, they're basically going to put $45 million a year into the tire fund. And so let me show you where that gets spent. $16 million goes for enforcement and cleanup. They're really not cleaning up old piles. This is just for a tire that's 1 or 2 tires that's dumped on the side of the road, and the litter crew from the road maintenance department goes and gets it. They're funding the staff of the road maintenance crew. So whether it's really going to tires, it's kind of a gray area. And then almost $13 million goes for the administration of the program. 15.6 goes to research and grants, and that's the guts of it. Those grants are what pays for asphalt pavement, and of that, only $11 million. So out of $45 million, only $11 million a year is going into new roads, which is really the only product that California manufactures. And Caltrans has still never adopted any standard to use tires in their asphalt roads, and they're the main road generator in California. So if you consider 1 mile of pavement costs $1 million, it's not a lot of money shared statewide for recycling tires. So in other words, we see landfilling tires is going to continue to happen. And then again, I don't expect you to read the detail here, but this is where the recycling actually occurred. So the recycling rate in 12 was 44, then 38, 38. So about 60% of tires are not getting recycled statewide. And directly from the report, it says that they're reduced grant funding, competition with low-priced imported chrome rubber. And these are just market factors that are not probably going to change. So in other words, there's going to be a lot of landfilled tires in the state of California. So we went to Stockton and saw this. It's called a roto-shred machine, and basically just has an in-feed conveyor, 2 rollers that shred up the tire, and then an outfeed that goes to a truck, and it'll do 16 to 20 tons per hour. This is kind of a low-end unit. It's not a high-end. This is basically one of the cheaper versions. And so what we need is a place for a couple of trucks to back up and dump, and then a place to put the machine, and then the conveyor to feed to the truck. So, and that's just a typical picture of what the machine looks like. Again, we would use what we would call a top feed, so we would have the conveyor go up and just have the tires fall down by gravity, and gravity would drop the wheels drop the tires into the wheels, and they would shred them up. And so this is, we also went up to Altamont. They have 2 of these machines at the Altamont facility, which is run by Waste Management. So they're getting tires all the way from Tulare County and hauling all the way up to Altamont, which, does everyone know where that is? That's almost Sacramento?
East of Livermore.
Yeah, all the way up to Livermore. So, yes, so they're going right past us. Tires are going right past us to these shredders, and our hope was they'd stop at us first. But They've got a little converted tractor loading the tires. They put it onto a conveyor belt, and this is a side load. We would probably get the top load. And then the tires just roll across the conveyor into the two wheels, and the two wheels would shred them. And then they would go, I didn't show that slide. It would go onto another conveyor onto the truck, and we would have a roll-off and then haul them down to the landfill. So it's a pretty simple operation. It's basically a one-man job, and if it does 16 tons an hour, you'd only have to run it for a couple of hours a week, depending on how many tires we get. And so we would recommend getting a little Bobcat skid loader, and we would recommend that because it's got a variety of attachments you can put on it, and it's a lot more agile, and we can do more skilled work with it rather than our big heavy machines that we have. So the total cost, and this is estimated, we didn't go out to bid, we just said what is the basic cost for this, not to exceed price. So the machine itself would be $220,000, the skid steer would be $50,000, the outfeed conveyor, if we have to get the longer one, would be $6,000, the concrete pad for all of it would be $70,000, the electricity would be $40,000. So the total cost would be $386,000. It's a 20-year machine, so it'd be basically $19,000 a year for us to stay in compliance. And then the benefit would be that if we can find a market of tires, and there are 65 million tires, used tires generated in California every year, 65 million, and there it's basically more than one tire per person. So there's 1 million tires in the Fresno area, and 500,000 tires down in Visalia, Tulare area. And so we could reach that market, hopefully, and get some of those tires. And so basically we looked at the O&M of about $50,000, and we can, again, if we get a lot of tires in, we'll be able to pay for that with the revenue. It'd be a perfect business model. Otherwise, we are composting or start composting with Synagro in January, and we will actually profit on that. We're spending money to compost. In the future, we'll have some money left over, and we hope to have about $120,000 a year we can pay for the O&M of this tire shredder versus running the composting operation. And then we also save a lot of money on loading, because right now, when we load one trailer, it takes 3 employees about 6 hours, and it'll take 1 employee 1 hour to process more tons than that through the machine. So it'd be a huge savings, efficiency on loading. So the next step, and again, it's cut off there, is that we need to get a waste tire processing permit. They want you to be able to put out a fire, and they want you to have a generator there to run the pump in case you use power to the pump, can't pump water. So we need the water supply, which we already have the well, and we think it's adequate, and we have a generator on site, but we need to get the power over to the pump. So what we're asking for right now is we'll go ahead and pursue getting the permit to hold more tires and process tires on site. And if we know we can get that, then we'll come back to you with bids for this equipment and the setup. So we're not asking for any approval tonight, just some feedback on if you still think this is the right direction to go.
Okay. Well, the question I had regarding that is, obviously that's a lot of tires, a lot of mosquitoes there too, and safety issue with it. I think the Ultima, is that where it burned last time? I don't know if you were here, but Wesley? Okay, but still, it's a safety issue, and probably high insurance in case, it gets burned, and then the neighbors also you around, because of health reasons.
Right, and our permit would be for 5,000 tires, so and that would be our maximum, and we would not plan on stockpiling at all. We would plan on getting enough tires to run the machine for a couple hours, run it, get them all processed, and as soon as they're shredded, they don't hold water. And we put them in the landfill. So we would not plan on stockpiling any, really.
Yeah, no, we don't want too many there. So any more questions? Richard Walsh?
I know that most of the downside or the concern with tires is the burn. That if you get fire, it's hard pressed, like nigh on into impossible to put it out. If they get shredded, is our fire risk reduced, or are we just spreading that?
No, they would burn the same, but I would submit to you that almost every tire fire that's ever occurred has been because someone set the tires on fire. They're not spontaneously combusting. They're very hard to get started. So to me, what happens is somebody with an old piece of property from a couple decades ago had a huge tire fire and they want to draw attention to it or get rid of them. So they intentionally started the fire. So it's arson is what I think is causing it. And we're not going to have very many tires on site. These tires were.
Just wondered if it got reduced by
No, it would still burn the same, but we will have the water. We'll have the water and the ability to. We have a bigger tanker than the fire department does at our landfill.
It'd be harder for the pieces of rubber to catch fire than a whole tire. I would assume.
Potentially, I'm not a.
Not that I've ever put a tire.
Director Medina.
I don't think it's a problem.
I love the way it's presented, I love the business plan of it, but are we competing with private industry?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because where there's a market for asphalt, which is the main product that's produced, they are getting paid by grants that $11 million for those tires. And when they can't, they're having to dispose of them in landfills. That's why 60% of the tires are not recycled. Only 38% are getting recycled. So that's what's funded by the grants. So I think the rest of it is going somewhere else, and I'm proposing we be part of that somewhere else.
So the company at Altamont, they're not a private company?
Yeah, they're a private company, but they're not recycling, they're landfilling.
Okay.
And they have 2 of those machines running all the time. They have a full crew there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I say one more thing about that?
Go ahead, sir.
That's who we'd be competing against. Not the recycler. We'd be competing against the other landfills.
But we're providing a closer option for our customers and our residents, so they don't have to travel 3 hours to dispose of their tires. They can dispose of them here, and we can benefit from that revenue. That's the idea.
Or pay the higher cost.
That was for information too.
I just hate the government entity to take business away from a private industry. That's my only concern. We're not in business to be in business. We're government.
Well, we are in business to cover our costs, and we were losing money before, so we do need to make sure that we have a revenue stream that is adequate to continue to operate them at landfills, and this is part of that strategy.
And we could limit it. We could take in just enough tires to pay for the machine and whatever you would decide. We could set the price very low and try to make a fortune, or we can just set it where we're covering our costs and profiting a little bit. I mean, we'll have that ability if we keep going this direction. We can set the price, or we can limit the contracts.
Okay. Go ahead.
And if I don't know, my brain's kind of going, how come there isn't more private industry doing this? If the way it's presented, there's
no landfill.
Definitely a profit.
No landfill to put
them in.
No one wants to take that chance.
No, there's no landfill to put them in, is the point, is they don't have that. That's our asset, is that space in our landfill, and basically in our location, right? I mean, so it's either travel a long way to find somebody who will accept it. Nobody else has that landfill.
If we are inclined to move this direction, it seems like a good model. The other part it can do is it puts us in a position, maybe in terms of articulating with those of us who know legislative members, that says, maybe California ought to get into the recycling business of tires for our roadways. And if other states can do it, why haven't we stepped up? So it has the potential for us to even create a market for us, that instead of putting it in the landfill, we may be able to have it
sell it.
Yes, but there would be a lot more machinery to get it from the shreds to the crumb rubber.
Well, absolutely, I understand that, but it was like, my thought was, if you're going to dump it in the back of a truck, then we're hauling it to somebody else who has the other machinery who's doing.
Yes, that's a possibility.
That was more not that we would be in that business.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to 17, which is discussion of extending landfill hours at the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority landfill.
Okay, last month, the idea was brought up, could we shift the hours or do something on Saturdays to help customers out? And I have several slides that I'm not going to show you, but if you want the detail, I can give it to you. But I just want to show you from a business perspective, Saturdays are not moneymakers. They're all about service. So this is just the last 5 months of the tonnage by hour at Highway 59. So you can see red represents Saturday. It's the slowest day of the week. And there's the revenue per hour for Highway 59. Again, the red is Saturday. This is Billy Wright. This is the tons per hour. And there's Billy Wright. Again, it's the same thing. Saturdays are all about service. We're not making money. So, taking that into consideration, the more hours you're open, the more money you're losing. So what we also mentioned was that we're already open 20 full Saturdays a year. It's just a lot of the customers may not know that. So 12 of those, the left-hand column is the Saturday following a holiday, a weekday holiday. So if your Friday was, what day is Christmas? Is that Friday? Friday. So no collection on Friday, but everybody who had service on Friday will get service on Saturday. So our landfill will be open the full day on Saturday for everybody. And so we looked at those days, and we also looked at the Saturday cleanup days, which is the right column, which there are about a dozen over at Highway 59 and 6 over at Billy Wright. So we're open 20 Saturdays. So when we presented this to the TRB, they said, well, you know, a really good compromise is be open a full Saturday, the first Saturday of every month. And so that's what we would propose.
I would suggest one day, that's what I was going to suggest.
Right.
Maybe just one day a month would be sufficient.
And the first Saturday is easy to remember. And so Stacy's already volunteered to try to get, you know, publications and all of your... yeah, there you go. We'll get these in the utility bills, or we'll get this information out there to the cities and help the customers know that it's going to be the first Saturday every month. So we've already set the cleanup schedule. That is this cleanup schedule for 2016. So we'll be open a little bit more this year, but next year we'll try to go back to the 20. And but we will start in 2016, first Saturday of every month, and we'll get that word out. So we appreciate that compromise. That's something we can do and helps the citizens. So. Okay. You know, and I wanted to mention this one fact that we looked back through last week, from January 1 to last week. Do you know how many employees we had call in on Saturdays? 0. Not one employee call in on Saturday all year, and that's our shorthanded day, the skeleton crew. Those guys are really dedicated and do a great job, and we didn't want to put more on them, because when you start making their day miserable, oh, I'm sick and it's going to be on Saturday, not one single call in for the whole year. So they'll like that compromise, and so we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Josh.
Just point of clarification. So if it goes to the first Saturday of every month, it would still be the Saturday following the holiday also, correct? That doesn't change?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Information only? So we'll move on to the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. Item number 18, action item, consent agenda. A, minutes of the November 19, 2015 Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. B, Proposition 1B, fiscal years 2013-14 and 2014-15 Transit System Safety, Security, and Disaster Response Account Program Grant Resolutions. C, transfer of compressed natural gas buses to the City of Turlock and City of Visalia. D, Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County, audit financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2015. Any questions or comments from the board? Move, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I'll open up to the public because there's still any questions on the audit or any other item? No? Okay.
Two quick questions.
Good.
And really not, you said one. One on the transit safety, security, disaster. There's no impact to your operations with that. I mean, that's money you weren't anticipating, right? We're on consent on 1B money?
Correct. That is.
There's no impact to your operations. It was unanticipated funds that you were going to get.
We have an allocation for a safety grant through Cal OES of about $206,000 a year. This is going to pay for the security fence around the new facility.
It's a good use of the money.
And then on the transfer compressed, in the paragraph on the, FTA, it says you can't use funds, FTA funds in the process. I'm assuming what that meant is they couldn't use FTA money and pay us.
Correct.
Correct.
Not that we couldn't buy other equipment we needed to, okay.
Correct.
So we had a motion by Director O'Banion and a second by Josh Pedrosa. Okay, call the question. All ayes? Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Number 19, oral report, transit monthly update. Rich Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just want to go over a couple of things very quickly. We completed our holiday toy drive, our Stuff the Bus campaign it was on the 5th of December in conjunction with HSA and the Sheriff's Department. I don't have the actual numbers yet of what we gathered, but we did a pretty good job of stuff in the bus. HSA was very happy with the result, so that was good. And again, all these toys go to children here in Merced County. So
Terrific.
we were also able to get in all 6 of the city's parades this year. So we were out and about. Hopefully, all of you attended the parades and got to see us. We had our bus decorated with a big Santa hat and had Buster out there. It's nice to get out into the community and have people cheer for us as we come by. It's good PR and good to know that people like us, whether they're riding the bus or not. So this you can't see, but believe it or not, it says fixed route ridership at the top. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're starting to look at what adjustments may need to happen for July of next year. So we're looking at the ridership. We tend to have a pattern of ridership. It goes up after school starts, and then it dips down around the holidays, and then it kind of evens out through the spring. As you can see, the red line is this year as of July 1. We're roughly about where we should be. Ridership, I think, is just a little bit low, but that could be because the price of gas has dropped. But I just pulled the numbers for November, and we're actually higher than we were last year. So I think we're right in the right ballpark for ridership. So when we're talking about route revisions, we're in the last year of our CMAQ funding for evening service and Sunday service. So we're going to need to reevaluate what's worked and what hasn't worked to see what we need to do there as far as what will continue and what won't continue. We'll look at all the instances of low ridership and see if maybe we need to make some adjustments, close some routes at certain times of the day or completely. We also want to look at try to get creative and look at some alternatives for Atwater and Los Banos because ridership's fairly low in those communities. We want to see what we can do to increase that. And right now we've released surveys to all the transit operators, all the bus drivers, to get their feedback as well. That's something we do every year is try to get their feedback because they're out on the road actually performing these services. With paratransit, it's a little bit different story. What we've been trying to do over the past few years is make adjustments to paratransit to serve our ADA folks out there as best we can. One of the things that we've gone through a process of doing is eliminating our non-ADA programs, where we're providing services to folks who don't qualify for ADA with this service. So now that we have done that, plus the fact that our paratransit program was about as big, cost us almost as much as our fixed route service, and it should really be about 20%. So we needed to reduce that. I think we've done that. We've ended all of the programs. Now we're going to look at what are some other additional services that we can offer those folks who are ADA accessible or ADA eligible. So as part of the revisions for paratransit, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that we have to provide the same operating hours on paratransit that we have for fixed route. So if the fixed route runs till 9 o'clock, we have to have a bus available for paratransit till 9 o'clock as well. And of course, what we're trying to do is make sure we have increase our availability for our ADA passengers. One of the things we've experienced in the past, because we were running the programs, we didn't always have availability for our ADA folks, and they're our priority. So we want to do some more outreach to them, make sure that they know that that availability is there, and that we want to provide that service to them. There's also something that's kind of hitting the transit community right now, is the concern about the increase in baby boomers out there, and the reliability, or the reliance on paratransit just from the overall numbers. So there's going to be an increase that we have to prepare for there. And then if we can, possibly reevaluate the option of same-day service. That's really the one thing that our ADA folks are concerned the most about, and they really would like to see us go back to the same-day service. So we're going to evaluate that and see if we can't provide that to them. We are working with the Area Agency on Aging. We've set some workshops, and we've provided some surveys to the seniors that ride our buses. We want to get feedback from them. And we've set 2 workshops, one in January, or one in Los Banos and one in Merced, both in January. And then shortly following that, we're going to have workshops in the February-March timeframe, and try to time that with our unmet needs hearing and get as much feedback as we can before we do our route revision. So I think that was it.
Okay, and just for information, questions? Yeah. Okay, Walsh?
When you're doing the review on, like the fixed route, I mean, are we looking at the size of the equipment we're running in those low routes and the hours? I mean, if we've got some ridership, but maybe we can do smaller equipment? I don't know. I mean, it just seems, and just to, I mean, I'm sure you not remember, same-day services, great idea. However, frankly, the bulk of the complaints we used to hear about was the fact is that you didn't get me there on time on my same-day service. I called that day and you couldn't get me there at the time frame I want. So just want to remind all of us, remember, those were the complaints that we used to get mostly was, I had to wait for so long, whereas you may still get them. I'm not, people aren't calling me about this with the current service,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
Rich, can you bring us a detailed report of the ridership, the times of the ridership, the routes that you have by city?
We're starting to work on that. It may be another 2 months away by the time I can have an actual report to you. We're starting that process now.
And by the time we have the discussion, we'll have that report, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want to look at every city, and then every route, and then the late night routes, whatever, how many what's the ridership, how many, whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Director Price?
Rich, on the same-day type of service, this is what we had discussed before, is it not, where you were encouraging 24-hour pre-appointment type things? Am I hearing that isn't working out now, or
No.
how's that?
The system as it is right now, it's next day reservation.
Right.
So you have to call a day in advance to schedule your trip. If we have availability that day to fit in some additional calls, we can try to do that, but we don't want those folks who have scheduled their trips to suffer because of it.
Right.
So those are locked in. This is only availability if we have room that day.
And what about this holiday season? Is that putting an extra burden on that particular service?
Not specifically that I know of. Actually, ridership goes down a little bit during the holidays.
Okay. Something else I was curious on, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but with the falling fuel costs, is that helping the bottom line for your particular budget now?
Mm-hmm.
As is probably also Brooks with yours also? Is that helping out? Okay. All right, thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Lester was the hit of the kids' night. I heard more good comments about that. One grandmother told me about her little granddaughter sat down and had a conversation with him. So it just transfixed my Buster. It was a big deal. Thanks for bringing him home.
No more questions?
Who was the buster at that night? Was that Rich?
No, it was Buster.
Oh, okay.
Like Santa Claus?
It wasn't me sitting in the van out of the way so they couldn't see me.
Thank you, Rich.
Stay in character.
Now going to Merced Data Special Services, item number 20, minutes of the November 19, 2015, Merced Data Special Services, action item. Comments from the board? From the public? No, I guess an action. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Walsh and Pedroso, first and second. I'll call the vote for the motion. For the question? Nays? No? Okay, thank you. Ayes have it. Item number 21, Executive Director's Report.
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, I want to remind you about the 2 ribbon cuttings we have scheduled for January. This is pretty amazing. Ribbon cutting for Plainsburg, which was already mentioned by Tom Dumas, is January 15th at 11:30. It's for Plainsburg, so I think the invitation will tell you where to go along the freeway to cut that ribbon. And the other one that I'm so pleased to finally get to, which all the off-ramps and on-ramps will be open and accessible to people, is on January 22nd at 2 p.m. is the Atwater Merced Expressway ribbon cutting. So please come to that. We will celebrate our accomplishment there. And then last but not least, you are all welcome to our open house tonight between 5 and 8 today. If you can drop by, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Margie. Director's Report, start with Walsh. And today? Brian?
I have to leave as soon as we get done.
John Pedroso.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
McDaniel?
Merry Christmas.
Josh Pedroso?
I just want to mention this Sunday, 1 till 6 at the Bloss House, Supervisor McDaniel is ramrodding Toys for Tots or Cops and Fire for Kids toy drive. It's been very successful this year in our community. We've collected a little over $18,000 towards the purchase of toys and all that. And if you wish to come by the Bloss House, more than welcome to do so. For the cost of a unwrapped toy. Beyond that, thank you for coming to our house today, and I hope you enjoyed our new visual effects here. It's been a long time coming. We're in the 20th century finally. Merry Christmas to all, and thank you all.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I just want to warn everybody, when the Super Bowl comes, there was a production company in Gustine last week. They filmed a commercial that will air during the Super Bowl.
Wow.
They won't, you know it's a banking institution, they won't tell us which one. And unfortunately, Mayor Brazil got part. Is there any? It's probably going to run 5. It's probably going to run 5 minutes if he's in it. What? Is there Indians in it? No Redskins. But they did ask for cowboys. They had a casting call of local people, and they asked for cowboys. So, but there weren't any Redskins. And no Niners. Yeah, no Niners.
Director Villalta. Director Villalta.
I'm going with Jerry, so sorry we can't attend the open house at MCAG. We're attending the Golden Ages dinner, and so can't miss that.
All right, council.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah. I wanted to make it a short meeting, but everybody had a lot of questions, so, don't blame.
We do have a closed session.
We have a closed session after this conference with legal counsel, existing litigation subdivision D1 of section 54956.9, Sierra Club and Center for Biological Diversity versus Merced County Association of Governments and Merced County Association of Governments, case number CVM 019664.
John wants to go to the restroom.
I have to go too.
So,
No.
is there room back here, or do we just shut everything down?
The closed session room is running. bet.
Oh, wow.
outside, and then another.
I thought there was one right behind here.
Our next meeting will be in the city of Livingston, January 21st.